This science-backed 14-day sugar detox, what actually happens inside your body? Here's something that might shock you. Eliminating sugar for just 2 weeks can fundamentally reprogram your metabolism at the cellular level. We're not talking about feeling a bit better. We're talking about measurable, scientifically documented changes in your brain chemistry, hormone levels, and even your DNA expression. And here's the kicker. The first 3 days are the hardest, but after that, your body starts operating like a completely different machine. Let me show you exactly what the research says. I'm going to walk you through what actually happens when you eliminate sugar, not based on anecdotes or trends, but based on peer-reviewed medical research, clinical trials, and data from institutions like Stanford Medicine, Harvard Medical School, and the National Institutes of Health. Here's what we'll cover in the next few minutes: the metabolic cascade that sugar triggers in your body, why sugar cravings aren't a willpower problem, they're biochemical, 7 evidence-based transformations that occur within 14 days, the 3-day metabolic transition and how to manage it, long-term disease prevention benefits backed by decades of research. Before we dive in, let me be clear. This isn't about demonizing all carbohydrates. We're specifically talking about added sugars, the refined sugars added to processed foods, not the natural sugars found in whole fruits and vegetables that come packaged with fiber and nutrients. Understanding the sugar-insulin crisis, the insulin resistance epidemic. Let me start with a statistic that should alarm everyone. According to recent analysis from the National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey, 40% of U.S. adults aged 18 to 44 are now insulin resistant. That's not type 2 diabetes yet. That's the precursor state where your cells are starting to reject insulin signals. Here's what's happening at the cellular level. The vicious cycle. When you consume sugar, your blood glucose spikes. Your pancreas responds by releasing insulin, the hormone that tells your cells to absorb that glucose. Sounds simple, right? But here's the problem. Research from Duke University School of Medicine reveals that excess fructose consumption triggers a molecular factor called carbohydrate responsive element binding protein, or CHREP, which causes the liver to produce more and more glucose despite insulin signals telling it to stop. Think about that for a moment. Your body is literally overriding its own stop signals. The fructose problem. Not all sugars are created equal. Studies show that the unregulated hepatic uptake and metabolism of fructose leads to liver lipid accumulation, dyslipidemia, decreased insulin sensitivity, and increased uric acid levels. Here's why fructose is particularly problematic. Unlike glucose, which can be metabolized by virtually every cell in your body, fructose is processed almost exclusively by your liver. When you overload your liver with fructose, especially from sugar-sweetened beverages, it responds by converting that fructose into fat through a process called de novo lipogenesis. Research demonstrates that intermediate products such as diacylglycerols generated during lipogenesis may impair insulin signaling in the liver and peripheral tissues, leading to insulin resistance. The inflammatory connection. But it gets worse. Studies have shown that excessive sugar intake is associated with increased de novo lipogenesis in the liver, hepatic triglyceride synthesis, and increased triglyceride levels, a known risk factor for cardiovascular disease. The intake of excessive sugar-sweetened beverages leads to increased glycemic load and chronic inflammation with elevated levels of inflammatory factors, such as C-reactive protein and interleukin-6. These inflammatory markers don't just stay in your bloodstream, they actively damage your arterial walls, setting the stage for heart disease. Key takeaway: sugar isn't just empty calories, it's an active metabolic disruptor that triggers a cascade of harmful biochemical processes. The 14-day transformation, what the science shows. Now let's talk about what happens when you actually eliminate added sugars for 2 weeks. These aren't theoretical benefits. These are documented, measurable changes. Day 1 to 3, the metabolic transition period. What's happening? Your body is still running primarily on glucose as its fuel source. As your glycogen stores, stored glucose, begin to deplete, you may experience what researchers call metabolic switching symptoms: headaches, fatigue, irritability, and intense cravings.
The science. This is your body building new enzymes at the cellular level to process fat as fuel instead of sugar. Your mitochondria, the powerhouses of your cells, are literally restructuring themselves. Managing the transition. Research shows that supplementing with B vitamins and adequate potassium can significantly reduce these symptoms. The key is understanding this is temporary. It typically lasts 72 hours maximum. Change 1. Craving elimination and appetite normalization. Day 3 to 7. The breakthrough. One of the most dramatic changes people report is the disappearance of sugar cravings. But this isn't willpower, it's biochemistry. The mechanism. When you consume sugar, your blood glucose spikes, then crashes as insulin drives that glucose into cells. This blood sugar crash triggers hypoglycemia to some degree, which causes you to crave more sugar, creating a vicious cycle. When you eliminate sugar, you stabilize these blood sugar fluctuations. Within days, that roller coaster stops. You're no longer experiencing the hormonal signals that drive those cravings. Appetite regulation. Insulin resistance impairs glucose disposal, resulting in a compensatory increase in beta cell insulin production and hyperinsulinemia. When your cells are insulin resistant, they're not getting fed properly, despite having plenty of glucose in your bloodstream. Once you eliminate sugar and reverse this resistance, your cells can finally absorb nutrients effectively. The result? You feel genuinely satisfied after meals for the first time in years. Change 2. Rapid water weight loss. The visible change. Within the first week, many people report losing significant weight, sometimes up to 10 to 13 pounds. Before you get too excited, let's talk about what's actually happening. The science behind water retention. High sugar intake increases insulin levels, which causes your body to retain more sodium and, in turn, more water. Every gram of glycogen, stored carbohydrate, is bound to approximately 3 to 4 grams of water. When you eat fewer carbohydrates, your body uses up its stored glycogen, which is bound with water, leading to a decrease in water retention and a reduction in bloating. What this means is that initial weight loss is primarily fluid, but it's not meaningless. Carrying excess fluid puts strain on your cardiovascular system. As that fluid is released, many people notice reduced facial puffiness, decreased ankle and leg swelling, clothes fitting more loosely, especially around the midsection, reduced joint stiffness.
After week 1. Once the water weight is gone, your body transitions to burning fat for fuel. This is when sustainable fat loss begins. Change 3. Energy stabilization and mental clarity. Day 5 to 10. The experience. Remember that 3 p.m. energy crash that had you reaching for another coffee or candy bar? Watch what happens when you eliminate sugar. Post-meal fatigue. When you eat a high-sugar meal, your blood glucose spikes dramatically. Your brain, detecting this spike, triggers mechanisms to protect itself from the toxicity of excess glucose. The result? That drowsy, foggy feeling after eating. Research published in Cell Reports Medicine demonstrates that eliminating sugar improves working memory and cognitive function by allowing the brain to utilize ketones as an alternative fuel source. Brain function enhancement. A Stanford medicine study found that a ketogenic diet not only restores metabolic health, but further improves psychiatric conditions, with researchers hypothesizing that just as the diet improves the body's metabolism, it also improves the brain's metabolism. Systematic reviews show that sugar elimination confers cognitive-enhancing effects in areas such as working memory, reference memory, and attention, with the potential to alleviate age-related cognitive decline. Practical results. No more afternoon crashes, sustained focus throughout the day, improved concentration and task completion, reduced brain fog and mental sluggishness. Change 4. Mood enhancement and emotional stability. Week 2. The emotional shift. Many people don't realize how profoundly sugar affects their mood and emotional regulation. The blood sugar-mood connection. Those blood sugar roller coasters don't just affect your energy, they directly impact your emotional state. The crashes trigger stress responses in your adrenal glands, releasing cortisol and creating feelings of anxiety and irritability. When you stabilize blood glucose, you stabilize mood.
people consistently report feeling calmer and less reactive, more emotionally balanced, less anxious, better stress management, improved interpersonal interactions. The neurological explanation. Research shows that ketone bodies, produced when the body switches from sugar to fat metabolism, contribute to the brain's bioenergy and support cognitive abilities. This metabolic shift doesn't just affect cognition, it influences neurotransmitter production and emotional regulation. Change 5. Skin transformation. Week 1 to 2. The visible improvement. Within 7 to 14 days, many people notice their skin looks clearer, less inflamed, and more radiant. This isn't cosmetic marketing, it's documented biochemistry. The acne-insulin connection. High glycemia induces both synthesis and secretion of insulin, which encourages ovaries and adrenal glands to produce androgens, lowering sex hormone binding globulin levels and thereby strongly intensifying androgen activity and facilitating development of acne. Breaking down the mechanism. Sugar consumption, insulin spike. Elevated insulin, increased androgen production. Androgens, excessive sebum production, oil, excess sebum plus dead skin cells, clogged pores, and acne. Research shows that insulin and insulin-like growth factor 1 are linked to acne-related factors such as sebum production, keratinocyte proliferation, and androgen production. For women, in females, elevated insulin increases androgens, leading to hormonal acne, typically along the jawline and chin. For men, elevated insulin levels prompt the adrenal glands to produce more androgen hormones, which lead to more acne-causing sebum. Additionally, high insulin can suppress testosterone, creating other hormonal imbalances. Additional skin benefits. Reduced inflammation and redness, decreased puffiness, more even skin tone, improved healing of existing blemishes, and natural glow from improved circulation. Change 6. Inflammation reduction and pain relief. Week 2. The anti-inflammatory effect. One of the most profound but underappreciated benefits is the dramatic reduction in systemic inflammation, joint pain, and stiffness. Inflammation plays a critical role in the initiation and progression of various diseases, and excessive sugar intake leads to chronic inflammation with elevated markers such as C-reactive protein and interleukin-6. When you eliminate sugar, you're removing a primary inflammatory trigger. Within 2 weeks, many people report reduced joint stiffness, especially in the morning, decreased muscle aches, less chronic pain, improved mobility and flexibility, faster recovery from exercise. Cardiovascular inflammation. Research demonstrates that sugar intake is associated with increased inflammatory markers, which is a proposed pathway for the relationship between excessive sugar intake and increased cardiovascular disease risk. The broader impact. Inflammation isn't just about aches and pains, it's the underlying driver of nearly every chronic disease, from arthritis to Alzheimer's, from heart disease to autoimmune conditions. Change 7. Metabolic disease reversal begins week 2 and beyond. The long-term game. While 14 days is just the beginning, the metabolic changes initiated during this period lay the foundation for reversing years of damage. Liver health restoration. Research indicates that fructose enhances hepatic lipogenic capacity and may inhibit fatty acid oxidation in the liver by impairing mitochondrial function. When you stop flooding your liver with fructose, it begins releasing the accumulated fat and using it for energy. If you've been carrying excess weight around your midsection, there's a strong probability you have fatty liver disease. This 2-week period initiates the reversal process. Kidney function improvement. Diabetes is notorious for destroying kidney function. Studies show that reducing carbohydrate and sugar intake can greatly improve kidney function in individuals with metabolic dysfunction. Even if you're not diabetic, excess sugar puts strain on your kidneys, allowing them to function more efficiently at filtering waste and maintaining fluid balance. Cardiovascular protection. Studies show that consuming sweet drinks significantly increases the risk of ischemic stroke, heart failure, atrial fibrillation, and abdominal aortic aneurysm. Analysis of data from over 204 countries found that high sugar-sweetened beverage consumption is responsible for significant cardiovascular disease burden, particularly in older adults. Within 2 weeks of eliminating sugar, arterial inflammation begins to decrease, blood pressure often normalizes, triglyceride levels start dropping, plaque formation slows. The ketogenic transition. Understanding ketosis. What's actually happening? After about 3 days of very low sugar and carbohydrate intake, your body depletes its glycogen stores and must find an alternative fuel source. Your liver begins breaking down fatty acids into molecules called ketone bodies, primarily beta-hydroxybutyrate, or BHB, and acetoacetate. The cellular revolution. At the cellular level, you're building new enzymes to run your body off fat fuel, with little machines literally changing over to a different fuel source. The neuroprotective benefits. Brain fuel upgrade. One of the most exciting discoveries in recent neuroscience research is that ketones aren't just an alternative fuel, they might actually be a superior fuel for the brain. Stanford medicine researchers found that ketogenic diets provide ketones as an alternative fuel to glucose for a brain with energy dysfunction, with multiple mechanisms likely at work. Neurogenesis, growing new nerve cells. Yes, you read that correctly. Research demonstrates that ketones support the growth of nerve cells, with studies showing that short-term ketogenic diet treatment improves working memory and hippocampal long-term potentiation in aged subjects. Clinical trials have shown that ketogenic diets can enhance mental state and cognitive function in patients with Alzheimer's disease, with 10 randomized controlled trials involving 691 patients demonstrating positive intervention effects. Clinical applications. Research shows ketogenic approaches have potential in treating various neurological disorders, including epilepsy, Alzheimer's disease, and Parkinson's disease, by enhancing gamma-aminobutyric acid-mediated neurotransmission. The metabolic flexibility advantage. Becoming a hybrid engine. The goal isn't to stay in ketosis forever, it's to regain metabolic flexibility. This means your body can efficiently switch between burning glucose and burning fat depending on what's available. Modern diets have locked most people into glucose-only metabolism. The sugar-free challenge restores that flexibility, making you metabolically resilient. The disease prevention evidence. Type 2 diabetes risk reduction. The sobering statistics. Insulin resistance is thought to precede the development of type 2 diabetes by 10 to 15 years. That means if you're insulin resistant now, and remember, 40% of young adults are, you're on track for diabetes by middle age. But here's the good news. Research shows that isocaloric replacement of starch or glucose with added sugars increases fasting insulin levels, reduces insulin sensitivity, and increases fasting glucose levels, which means the reverse is also true. Remove the added sugars and these markers improve.
Cardiovascular disease prevention. The heart disease connection. Individuals who consume 10 to 24.9% of their calories from added sugars have a 30% higher risk of mortality from cardiovascular disease compared to those who consume less than 10% of their calories from added sugars. Think about that statistic. That's not 50% of calories from sugar, that's just 10 to 25%. Most Americans far exceed even the high end of that range. The mechanisms. Sugar drives cardiovascular disease through multiple pathways. 1. Direct arterial damage. Excessive sugar intake is associated with increased de novo lipogenesis in the liver and elevated triglyceride levels, both risk factors for cardiovascular disease. 2. Inflammatory cascade. Studies demonstrate that reducing inflammation independent of lowering lipid levels can lower the risk of cardiovascular diseases, with sugar-induced inflammation being a primary driver. 3. Blood pressure elevation. Elevated insulin drives salt-sensitive blood pressure and precedes hypertension in many instances, with insulin-resistant individuals having impaired excretion of sodium in the urine. Fatty liver disease. The silent epidemic. Non-alcoholic fatty liver disease has increased at an alarming rate in the U.S. population, particularly among children, as a disease of lipid metabolism where excess triglycerides accumulate in hepatocytes. The sugar-liver connection. Your liver can only process about 25 to 30 grams of fructose per day. The average American consumes 75 plus grams. That excess gets converted directly into liver fat. Studies show that dietary fructose is converted to microbial acetate by gut microbiota, which enhances hepatic lipogenesis by supplying lipogenic acetyl-CoA, leading to ectopic fat deposition in the liver. The reversal. When you eliminate excess sugar, your liver can finally start burning that stored fat. People carrying excess abdominal weight almost certainly have fatty liver disease. The 14-day challenge initiates the healing process. Cancer risk reduction. The metabolic connection. An umbrella review analyzing 73 meta-analyses found significant harmful associations between dietary sugar consumption and 7 cancer outcomes among 45 total health outcomes examined. The connection isn't mysterious. Cancer cells are metabolic opportunists that thrive in high glucose environments. By stabilizing blood sugar and reducing insulin spikes, you're creating a less hospitable environment for cancer development. Cognitive protection and brain health. Alzheimer's, type 3 diabetes. There's growing evidence that Alzheimer's disease is fundamentally a metabolic disorder of the brain. Some researchers even call it type 3 diabetes. Research shows that unlike glucose uptake, which becomes impaired in Alzheimer's, ketone body uptake and metabolism remain intact and efficient to provide the brain with nutrition, energy, and neuroprotection. Prevention strategy. Clinical trials have shown that ketogenic diets significantly improve quality of life, daily function, and ease Alzheimer's-related cognitive impairment. Starting this metabolic shift now, in your 20s, 30s, or 40s, may be one of the most powerful preventative strategies for preserving brain function decades later. Practical implementation. What actually counts as added sugar? Let's be specific about what we're eliminating. Obvious sources: table sugar, brown sugar, raw sugar, high fructose corn syrup, candy, cookies, cakes, and pastries, soda and sweetened beverages, sweetened coffee drinks, energy drinks, fruit juices, yes, even natural ones. Hidden sources: salad dressings and sauces, flavored yogurt, which can contain 6+ teaspoons of sugar, granola and healthy cereals, protein bars and health bars, tomato sauce and ketchup, bread products, low-fat products. They replace fat with sugar. What you can eat: whole fruits. The fiber slows sugar absorption. Vegetables, all types. Proteins, meat, fish, eggs, legumes. Healthy fats: avocados, nuts, olive oil, fatty fish. Whole grains in moderation. Plain dairy products. Managing the first 3 days. Expect these symptoms: headaches, usually mild, fatigue, irritability, strong cravings, mild brain fog. Your survival strategy: 1. Hydrate aggressively. Aim for 3 to 4 liters of water daily. 2. Supplement strategically. B-complex vitamins and 3,000 to 4,000 milligrams of potassium from foods or supplements. 3. Eat enough fat. This helps with satiety and provides alternative fuel. 4. Don't restrict calories. Focus only on eliminating sugar, not starving yourself. 5. Sleep more. Your body is working hard to adapt. 6. Prepare mentally. Know it's temporary and biochemical, not a personal failing. Beyond 14 days. The sustainability question. This isn't about never eating a piece of birthday cake again. It's about breaking the addiction cycle, resetting your taste buds and metabolism, establishing a baseline of metabolic health, learning what normal energy levels feel like, building awareness of how sugar affects you. After 14 days, you can reintroduce occasional treats while maintaining the majority of benefits. The key is you'll be making conscious choices instead of being driven by biochemical compulsion. Conclusion: the big picture. Let's step back and look at what we've covered.
The research is clear. From institutions like Stanford, Harvard, Duke, and the National Institutes of Health, from analyzing hundreds of thousands of participants across decades of research, the evidence overwhelmingly demonstrates that excessive sugar consumption is one of the primary drivers of modern chronic disease. But here's the empowering part. You can reverse years of metabolic damage in weeks, not months, not years, weeks. The 7 transformations. 1. Craving elimination through blood sugar stabilization. 2. Rapid fluid loss as insulin levels normalize. 3. Energy stabilization as metabolic flexibility returns. 4. Mood enhancement through neurotransmitter balance. 5. Skin clarity through reduced inflammation and hormonal balance. 6. Pain reduction through decreased systemic inflammation. 7. Disease reversal beginning at the cellular level. The real question, it's not, can I give up sugar for 2 weeks? It's really, what am I willing to do to add years, even decades of healthy, vibrant life? Because that's what the research shows. This isn't about looking better in a swimsuit, though that happens. It's about preventing heart attacks and strokes, preserving brain function into old age, avoiding type 2 diabetes and its devastating complications, maintaining energy and vitality as you age, setting an example for the next generation. Your challenge: give your body 14 days. Just 14 days to show you what it's capable of when you remove one single dietary variable. Track these metrics: energy levels throughout the day, sleep quality, mood and mental clarity, physical appearance, take photos, how your clothes fit, cravings and appetite, any chronic aches or pains. The proof is in your experience. All the research I've shared with you today is fascinating, but the real proof will be in how you feel on day 15. Most people report they never want to go back to their old patterns, not because they're following rules, but because they genuinely feel so much better that the sugar just isn't worth it anymore. Your body knows what it needs. For decades, we've been overriding those signals with processed foods and constant blood sugar spikes. This challenge gives your body a chance to remember what normal feels like. The research is there, the mechanisms are understood, the benefits are documented. Now it's your turn to become your own #1 experiment. If this video has given you that aha moment, hit that like button right now. It helps us reach more people who need to hear this message. Drop a comment and tell me, what's your biggest concern about going sugar-free for 14 days? Or if you've already done it, what was your most surprising benefit? And if you're serious about transforming your health, subscribe and hit that notification bell, because I'll be releasing a follow-up video next week with meal plans, shopping lists, and day-by-day protocols to make this challenge as easy as possible. Remember, knowledge without action is just entertainment. You now have the science. The question is, what will you do with it? Let's make this happen. I'll see you in the next one.